Hi, it is so comforting to learn from the scriptures that God doesn't give up on us even when we feel like it's over. Yes, I know this may sound cliche, that when you hit rock bottom, remember that your way is up and not down. But it's a fact from scripture that even when you feel like it's over, God doesn't give up on us. I invite you to join me in this conversation that I've titled, He Gives Strength to the Weary. My name is Kuchio from CITAM ChurchOnline. He gives strength to the weary. Now the Bible tells us in Isaiah chapter 40, from verse 28, pay attention to this. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and are weary. Young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. It is very comforting to note from the scriptures that God doesn't give up on us, even when we feel like it is over. You've probably gone through a trying moment in your life, in your business, in your health, in your walk with God, and you feel, you know what, Pasi, it is over. It is over. Once again, I said this may sound cliche, but I'll say it nonetheless because there's truth in it. It is never over until God says it is over. Even when you've hit rock bottom and you think this is it, I came to encourage you that God gives strength to those who are weary, to those who have given up, to those who have despaired, to those who are disillusioned, to those who are saying it is over, game over. Not so yet. But you may ask me, why do you say so? Where do you draw such confidence? I draw such confidence from the scriptures. And I will tell you, number one, God's resources are indescribable. Therefore, worship Him for who He is. God's resources are indescribable. You see, if you and I had the capacity and the ability to fully identify and describe God's resources, He would cease to be God. But His resources are indescribable. Isaiah would say, His understanding no one can fathom. You see, God gives us strength, those of us that are feeling weak. God gives us energy, those of us who feel weary. And because we cannot fully understand how He does this, the best we can do is to worship Him. You see, Job of old, after he had been stripped of all he possibly knew to be his, after he had lost everything that described him as a wealthy man, a man of repute, the greatest man in the East, after he had lost his businesses, after he had lost his family, what did he do? He tore his clothes and he worshipped God. He said, naked I came from my mother's womb, or came into this world, and naked will I return. The Lord has given, and the Lord has taken. The Bible does tell us that in all this, Job did not sin by what he said. He simply worshipped God. That is a starting point. When you're feeling weary and exhausted, when you feel like throwing in the towel, turn your eyes, turn your focus on this God who is indescribable. His resources are indescribable. Therefore, worship Him for who He is. Isaiah would say, do you not know? Have you not heard? Do you not know? Have you not heard? He was calling on the nation of Israel to turn their focus, to turn their minds once again on this God. Because you see, Isaiah chapter 40 is a message of comfort. It's a message of hope. And Isaiah would encourage you and I this day that when you feel weary, when you feel down and out, turn your mind back on this indescribable God. Turn your focus back on this indescribable God and begin to worship Him. And something on the inside will begin to happen. God gives strength to the weary. The second truth I will mention to you, or the second reason why I am buoyant and confident that God gives strength to the weary, is because God's resources are inexhaustible. We said His resources, number one, are indescribable. Isaiah would say, none can fathom them. But secondly, God's resources are inexhaustible. Therefore, draw from this divine source. Isaiah would say that God gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and are weary. Young men stumble and fall. I can identify with Isaiah's analogy because in my younger years, I was one package of energy. I still am very energetic. In fact, if I had the opportunity to write something on my forehead, I would say, beware, here comes a package of energy, because I am very energetic. Never mind that I'm just about to hit 50, but I feel so energetic. In my younger years, particularly as a teenager, when I played sports, I played soccer, I played lawn tennis, I played basketball, I played field hockey, and I participated in track events. I was known to be this very energetic young man. But time has served to remind me that every human being runs out of energy. Not so with God. Isaiah would say, God does not grow tired or weary. His resources are inexhaustible. Therefore, I can lean in on this God whose resources are inexhaustible. When I feel weary, when I feel tired, when I feel like I have had it, I can lean on God because He does not know fatigue, neither does He grow weary. His resources are inexhaustible. Jesus would say in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. You see, He is the burden bearer. He is the bondage breaker. He is the inexhaustible one. And I encourage you, when you're feeling tired and weary, turn to Him. Turn to Him. Isaiah would call on the children of Israel. When you are about to give up, remember that you have a God in heaven who does not give up on us even when we think it is over. But thirdly, the reason why I'm buoyant, the reason why I'm confident that God gives strength to the weary is because God's resources are accessible. Yes, they are accessible. Number one, we said his resources are indescribable, therefore worship him. But number two, we said his resources are inexhaustible, therefore draw from this divine resource. But number three, I would say God's resources are accessible, therefore exchange your weakness for his strength. Exchange your weakness for his strength. This is what Isaiah would say. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. Some versions will say, but those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. The imagery that Isaiah gives here is that of an eagle that has flown for so many years and is about to give up. Is about to be retired from the scene. But the eagle does not give up. It soars to a high elevated rock. And for a while it's out of circulation. But something is happening. Its feathers are being regenerated. It flips its talons. It removes its talons through a natural process of regeneration. And after a while of being on that high elevated rock, the eagle finds its way back to circulation because something has happened. You see, Isaiah was not just talking about eagles. He was talking about men and women, people of flesh and blood, saying that it is normal for you and I to get to a place where we feel this is it. I have had it with this job. I have had it with this relationship. I have had it with this work. I have had it with this God. But he would say, no. Turn your eyes on him because his ways are past finding out. His resources are inexplainable. Turn your eyes, turn your focus on him because his resources are inexhaustible. But then again, he says, turn your eyes and focus on him because his resources are accessible. Exchange your weakness for his strength. The Apostle Paul seems to have understood this concept very well. How to exchange our weakness for God's strength. And this is what kept the Apostle Paul going again and again and again. You see, that indefatigable saint, that believer who keeps going and going and going, is the believer who has understood how to exchange his weakness for God's strength. You see, God is not weak. He is never weak. He does not know weakness. He is strong. He is perfect. But you and I cannot play God because we are human beings. We are given to weakness. We are given to weariness. But there's a God in heaven, hallelujah, who does not give in to weariness or to weakness. He is God. This is how the Apostle Paul put it. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, from verse 1, he talks about an experience he had encountered 14 years before he recorded this experience, where he was caught up to the heavens. And he says he heard things that human beings are not allowed to talk about. And the Apostle Paul says, to keep him from being puffed up out of this encounter, he says, a thorn in the flesh was given to him. A messenger from Satan to torment him, to keep him humble. And he says on 3 occasions, he prayed to God, take it away from me. Take this thorn in the flesh away from me. But God said, my grace is sufficient. We may never fully understand what that thorn in the flesh was. It remains a subject of speculation. Some scholars say probably it had to do with his eyesight. Some, it had to do with the fact that he was single. Some suggest that probably it had to do with the fact that he was not good looking and maybe there were no chicks to fall for him. All those are just matters of speculation. The Apostle Paul would say, in all this, God spoke to him and told him, my grace is sufficient, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. And therefore, the Apostle Paul says, therefore, I will boast even the more of my weakness. What the Apostle Paul was saying is this: that for you and I to keep going and going and going, we must learn to exchange our weakness for His strength. We must learn to exchange our disappointments for His joys. We must learn to exchange our downfalling for God's uplifting. It happens when you acknowledge that I am tired, I am weary, I am broken. Then you invite God, because God's resources are accessible. They are not inaccessible. They are accessible. All you need to do is exchange your weakness for God's strength. And you will realize that it is true that God gives strength to the weary. So are you feeling exhausted? Are you feeling tired? Are you feeling weary? Are you feeling burdened? Are you feeling washed out and wiped out, down and out? I have news for you. God in heaven gives strength to the weary. Yes, you who's disappointed, you who's discouraged, you who's distressed, you who's depressed, you who's disillusioned, you are a candidate for God's visitation. You are a candidate for God's strength, because God gives strength to the weary. The Lord bless you richly, and remember that God's resources are indescribable, that God's resources are inexhaustible, that God's resources are accessible. Go for it. The Lord bless you richly.